Let's go on to Google Android.
Yeah, Well, okay. You know what, Leo and Dark, y'all have been quiet. One of you pick where to start us on the Googleplex. Honeycomb. Yeah. It's a rumor at this point.
It's like the elephant in the room.
Yeah, it's a rumor at this point, so nobody panic yet. You know, I should have the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy here. Don't panic. Yet. But
here's what I think what's going to happen with Honeycomb. I think it's going to be a delayed release. More than, they'll come out with like 3.1 or whatever for whatever.
No, they've already done that. What everybody's citing here is they think Honeycomb will likely not be open sourced until Ice Cream comes out.
Yeah, exactly.
When Ice Cream Sandwich comes out, which is supposed to be unifying the tablet and phone OSs, at that point they'll open source it. And I have very mixed feelings about that, because they're taking a page from, the page, like you've been saying, Bid, and a lot of Apple people have been saying, if Google would just lock down and prevent people from doing stuff, which is exactly what's going on here. They're not releasing the source code to Honeycomb, and the primary reason being cited by most of the news people who are offering theories as to why Google is dragging their feet with this, is they don't want unauthorized phone manufacturers reverse engineering Honeycomb to run on form factors it was never meant to.
They don't.
They don't want
running on subpar systems, essentially.
Are being made to run on phones, which it isn't designed for, the smaller form factor and so on and so forth. But in the greater sense, it's one of those things this needs to blow over quickly. If they are going to wait till Ice Cream Sandwich needs to be out before Christmas. It's not. It's like
they were talking about moving Android over to a 6-month release cycle, similar to what Ubuntu has.
Okay, so maybe that'll happen. But if by the end of this year that source code hasn't been released, there's going to be some flack. It
seems against the idea of what Android was supposed to be.
Well, no, that's the thing. There's already a big stink, and this is only this isn't even really a week old at this point. This is just one of those things. Really, the whole community feels like they've been stabbed in the back right now, because they're like, "What's going on here? What's going on?" It's and I don't think they're unjustified to feel that way, because it's like it's you came to us and said you were going to be open. And now, what's going on? It's like,
Yeah, but what's the actual license that Android's based on? Is it an Apache?
Yeah, legally they're allowed to do this. Legally, they don't have to release the source code ever, which is one of those things, the fact that it's being so delayed like this. There's the more altruistic people who are inclined to trust Google, who are wanting to say, well, they're just holding up till Ice Cream's ready, and then they'll release everything. Well, we'll get it. It's just going to take a while this run around. And then there's the doom naysayers who are going, see, Google's true colors. They're going to lock it down. Android's going closed source. There isn't enough evidence to tell one way or the other, but it's one of those really inconvenient facts right now that Honeycomb source code ain't been released yet.
I think it's going to be an interesting experiment, just since so many people have said that Android would do better if it were a closed source kind of thing. Looks like we're going to get a chance to see if that's true or not.
Well, honestly, the general...
I think I'm one of those people as well. I think if they have power to say, you know what, AT&T, Verizon, you're going to do it our way now. I guess if it has that, if they can translate that into that kind of power. If you want to run an operating system, these are the guidelines. No more of this layer. I mean, you can keep your little HTC layers and all that crap, but you're going to participate our way. So we need to have something uniform, because a lot of people like to make the analogy that Android's following Microsoft. Microsoft kept very strict controls on how Windows had to be deployed and where it would go and on what hardware. Now, they did much to lock all the hardware providers into their model, but they had guidelines on how Windows was to be used, and I think Android does need to follow suit in saying, this is Android, this is our identity, and this is our guidelines.
Well, the big concern here, especially with Honeycomb, is that in order to develop a good Honeycomb device, you need the source code. You just do. You need to know all the things that have been done. You need to be able to go through stuff. It's just one of those things you need. And they're giving it to official partners like Motorola, who got it when it was actually in development. They got it way before anybody else. And it's one of those things, the precedent this is setting up is that if you're in Google's good graces, you will be able to make an Android device. If you're a true small OEM or an independent company or a true innovator, and you're not doing it in a way that Google is happy with, you will be denied from doing anything at all. And that's what everybody's afraid of here. Google does not have the finesse to pull an Apple. They just don't. It's interesting timing to see Google running this experiment right now. I'm hoping they're just waiting on ice cream and that they're not even remotely contemplating doing close. Because
their official story is just that they haven't really finished Honeycomb yet.
That's their official story, and I hope that's true. Because
seeing the state of the Zoom, that honestly makes sense.
Yeah. I've heard good things, but I've also heard, not finished things about the Zoom. So yeah.
Well, let me say this then. Wouldn't Google say if this is specific to Honeycomb? Because I find it interesting, which is supposed to be tablet tailored.
Right.
That they're not going to create the same kind of people have negative connotations to what they call the Android fragmentation. It's fine. You're going to have fragmentation. The hardware set limits you, and therefore your version. But the software itself can be like a Boolean type feature set. In other words, if I'm running on this hardware, obviously these features don't run. Couldn't they just be going for a uniform operating system in that when they push the next version of Honeycomb out, it's flat out pushed evenly across all tablets versus this whole problem that they're having with phones? Because I can tell you, I have the whole Android SDKs, and they go to great expense to try to tell us as developers to what wrapper to put on for total compatibility across the board and things like that.
Yeah, and this is one of the things they're supposed to be trying to address in ice cream, which is why why the people who are giving the benefit of the doubt are going, they're just waiting for ice cream sandwich. Ice cream sandwich is supposed to be basically putting in, built into Android itself, a wrapper level that will go across both phone and tablet phone factor, where that type of standardization is built more into the base OS than guidelines given to you developers.
Okay, so basically it would allow us to say that, all right, the software has this features, period. I can program for these features, and that's fine, in that the software is equal across all the planes, but the hardware might be limiting in some aspects, and if it is, then your service simply doesn't run.
Right, and I mean, for obvious reasons, you're going to want to write your UI for tablet because it's a different form factor, a little different than your UI for phone. But I mean,
sure,
that's a simple logic test adjustment. And basically all of that stuff's just being built into the tree rather than the Wild West it is now, where it's on y'all to define it based on guidelines from Google. Is what's supposed to be coming with ice cream sandwich.
Right. RIM has the same issue. I mean, they have several market share demographics on how many BlackBerry operating systems are out there and who has a larger share. And now they're trying to go to QNX with their tablets, and it's interesting to see that they're going to start emulation of not only Android applications of a certain level, but now their own BlackBerry apps. And what is to become of QNX in the same token of making standards in parallel to what Android's trying to do with this Honeycomb thing.
Well, and on that note, with what with what Research in Motion's doing over on the BlackBerry side of things, I kind of think that's a smart idea because emulating Android, and there's no reason you can't do it. It gives you basically become the other Android while still being your own standalone platform. It's honestly something I think WebOS should do too. I think they should add a Android emulation ability.
WebOS. I'm always the one to say that too many apps is like having too many cable channels. You just have too much worthless crap out there, and shouldn't be used as an argument. But there's a certain point that whether you have such little amount of apps that usability comes into question, and WebOS still has a ways to go to some of the apps that I see that the iPhone and Android has respectively in features.
Well, and it's way too early to say this yet, and this is one of the reasons I'm a little concerned about this potential closed source thing. But like I said, we very much are living the 1980s again. And anybody who remembers the 1980s, it's like the ones we talk about now are obviously Apple and Microsoft. But the reality is we had just as many, potential contenders. Let's see who we have right now. We have iOS, Android, Research and Motion's 2 OSs, Phone 7, and WebOS. So we got 5 good front runners. Apple and Android are the 2 strong ones right now. Microsoft was not something anybody would have considered investing in when they debuted in 85, and it was one of those, well, I see potential in 88, but they're still not the big guy. It's not. Just because Android's dominating right now, and just because iOS, why they're making some slip-ups, they still have a very large market share. Just because these 2 are on top right now doesn't mean a decade from now either one of them will have any position. There's still plenty of mistakes both of them could make to fall entirely off the map.
Sure, absolutely.
It's like both of them, both Google and Apple need to be taking a stance. This game ain't over yet. This game's just starting.
I don't ever see, honestly, Android fading. I think it's made such a huge footprint, and carriers obviously like it. Now, if Android burns its bridges with the carriers and maybe going too far with guidelines, then it's shot itself in the foot.
There are 2 things Android could do right now to shoot itself in the foot. A, it could impose too many restrictions where they become worse than Apple on the carriers and manufacturers. That's thing one Android could do to kill itself. The second thing Android could do to kill itself would be to change the nature of the OS in such a dramatic way that they piss off the core user base. And then they're like, okay, I got to hop ship. Who am I hopping to? And they won't all hop to the same thing, but it would be an all but death sentence to Android from which it might never recover. Short of those 2 fuck-ups, I'm largely going to agree with you. My guess is Android is going to be one of the 2 or 3 that's going to be around to stay 10 years from now.
Yeah, I hope Android goes. I love what it represents and what it has done for the industry. I own, obviously the HTC Evo and a Hero. It's still not my favorite mobile operating system, but man, I think what it's done to change the rules of the game is just awesome. And I do think that RIM and HP have a huge ability because HP's size and its carrier channels that it has to enterprise can take WebOS to wherever it wants to.
No, if HP will actually back WebOS, WebOS can have a first year just hit the ground running thing, and it could honestly become a super strong third contender. But HP has to put their full weight behind it, and HP has actually enough cash reserves that they could literally just buy the market. They could put devices out to be loss leaders to establish WebOS's presence and get people used to it and get them used to the idea that are designed purely for the idea of 1 or 2 Moore's Law cycles from now, we will be able to create a slightly better device that we will actually make money on, and we have established the market.
Yeah, and contrary to HP, RIM has a lot of name recognition and a very sizable loyal user base that they can also play on if they do it right. And I guess what I'm getting at, I would love to see finally an operating system market that is truly competitive across many players versus the old traditional.
Rather than choice A,
Windows,
choice
PC,
B,
or
and the other guy.
kind of thing.
So you want the same world I do. You want
Yeah.
them all fighting against each other rather than what we have in the desktop, which is we have
Right.
choice A, Microsoft, choice B, Apple, and then you have the two guys throwing stones at the Windows, Linux and BSD, but they're not in the same league at this point, unfortunately.
Having used all three, I can definitely say no.
Yeah. Well, but competition's good because it'll ultimately make all of them
What do you
better.
guys think, though? I didn't hear from Leo and Dark. What do you guys think about the whole Android RIM and WebOS type deal?
Personally, I think as far as HP and WebOS is concerned, I think unfortunately, HP has that 800-pound gorilla in their way, which is Microsoft, because HP has said, okay, 2011, 12, or whatever, that WebOS
2013, they're going to respond.
WebOS is going to be shipped with every PC or whatever they manufacture. Okay, cool.
Next year, HP will, but Microsoft said they're going to respond to that in 2013.
Yeah, good luck.
Well,
As with Microsoft in the last decade or so, they're behind the ball yet again.
Well, they're not even starting on tablets till 2012. So what do we expect? It's like.
No, so but you were saying HP has this big gorilla with Microsoft, so
Well, they have to partner with them. I mean, unless HP actually goes full bore with WebOS as they go the Apple route, we make our own software. Here's our integrated platform. Here's what it does, and it doesn't provide that Apple type experience. You're gonna have to go with what everybody else knows, and unfortunately, that's Windows.
Yeah, you have a very good point. In that HP, if it played its cards right, could say, you know what, we're going to extend services from our WebOS layer to Windows, and that people could, use a certain amount of extra services to the desktop that translates to our mobile devices. But you have a point of, well, Microsoft is a mobile player as well. They're going to say, well, bullshit. We're going to do it this way, and you guys need to provide these services, and if you want to run our operating system, you're going to need to do this, and we're not going to allow it.
Well, no, and
I don't know how
I think Dark has a valid point in that saying Microsoft is the 800-pound gorilla. However, there's one factor not being considered here, and I really don't think Microsoft wants to try and push that button. Because HP, albeit in a very half-hearted way, is one of the companies that has an ongoing active desktop Linux support thing. And if Microsoft, they tend not to promote it too much in the U.S. because they claim there's no market for it. But they have been very much keeping up with that. And it's one of those things. If Microsoft gives them this ultimatum of saying, well, if you want to continue to promote WebOS, then we're going to really limit, how much Windows you get. HP is one of the few companies who really is in the position to just go, okay, Microsoft, we're not a Windows company anymore. And
I was going to say, most of the perpetuals are already compatible with Linux anyway.
Exactly. HP could literally just become another Apple, except they're based on Linux instead of Unix, and then they could just openly and they're a very profitable, well-known OEM brand that everybody knows to go buy in the store. So they could just go all Linux.
They are the leader.
WebOS and desktop. And if they did that would be the beginning of the end for Microsoft's current position. It really would, because that would hurt Microsoft more than that would hurt HP.
Dominating the server market. I don't know if any of you know that, but Linux is now pretty much king of
the web.
Oh yeah, no.
You know what I'm saying? It's not all the mainframe, SAP machines and things like that. But
those are so hodgepodge custom solutions. It's not even
the server market, and that hurt a lot of Microsoft's clout in the server realm. Mm-hmm. And HP can walk this line. And you know what? We're still going to promote WebOS. And you know what? If you want to just play games with this, you're going to lose this much market sales anyway. But there's a line in saying, well, you know what? Dell will pick up the slack, or Gateway, or whatever. But they have a lot of power and name recognition and active channels that they do have a big club to swing against Microsoft.
Oh yeah, and right now they're not swinging that club against Microsoft because it's not in their best interest to. But if
Right.
Microsoft made it in their best interest, I think they'd do it in a heartbeat because they're not. HP will not play that game.
Right.
I don't see them playing it. Anyways, Leo, did you have anything to say on this?
I don't know anything about that. Doesn't seem to me like Android is going to be dethroned unless it's forked. But I'm wondering if that's even a real possibility, especially considering this Amazon AppStore. I could see Amazon forking at some point in the future.
Yeah, well, and like the fork goes into Microsoft, but we'll go into the Amazon thing here. Actually, it's like I find this funny. You know, everybody's pretty much convinced themselves at this point that it's only a matter of time before we have an Android Kindle. And I don't know if there's.
Kindle runs Linux anyway.
Yeah, I know. It's not like it'd be that much of a lateral shift to make an Android Kindle. Although I'm not sure I see it because the real appeal of the Kindle is that gray.
E-book, that's it.
No, it's that gray
Well,
screen.
you know what, guys, y'all knock it, but I'm gonna tell you, I don't own any tablet device, but reading on the Kindle to me is way easier.
No, see,
any of the tablets I've
Those
used.
Kindle screens look
no,
great.
that's the thing. The real appeal of the Kindle isn't the functionality; it's that gray screen, which all that
Yeah.
screen is it's a bunch of black and white ball bearings. They're white on one side, black on the other, and that's what every single pixel is on the Kindle, which means when you turn or load a page, you know, it loads the various on-off black-white things to form those infinite shades of gray. And it's there's no power once those are turned to their right position, no power is being used. It'll just stay that way. It's useful and it's very pleasant on the eyes because it's not lit pixels.
Yeah.
It's just tiny physical balls. And
I was gonna say, it's not like the iPad where you have that glare coming back at you.
Oh,
That's
yes,
like-
man. Oh, tell me about it. I don't understand how people enjoy these tablets. Why don't they make a matte glass? I don't find any of the tablets enjoyable at all. It's always a glare. It's either too bright. You know, I'm a person that puts my phone brightness, very low because I like things that are pleasing to my eye. I don't know how people get away with playing with games on these things or what. I don't know where they're at because my everyday use, things glare, it's very bright, and all kinds of things.
The reason for the glare has to do with the screen technology that's being used to achieve these high resolutions. And the reality is the competitor that's matte and flat is way more expensive at way lower resolution. So
I don't care about all this retina display.
No, I know, but
What does that mean?
I know, and I'm personally with you. But at the end of the day, it would be twice as expensive to create the display you and I would prefer, and it'd be half the resolution, and it'd be one of those things the end user wouldn't really get it unless they sat down and used it for about 12 hours. So it'd be hard to sell. I'm with you. I would rather have half the resolution and have it be matte and Kindle light in its resolution.
I don't get it. I just don't. I mean, it's all this. Oh, we can add 4 more pixels to your thing. Really?
Yeah.
I don't care. I mean, what does adding 4 more pixels do to the usefulness of my life? I mean, do people actually sit here and take these iPads and go, look at my family photos? I mean, I guess they go. Did they go to houses and say, hey? These are my photos. I mean, I've never done that in my life. I've never literally taken a device.
Well, and to be honest,
I've never done it.
To be honest, with the anti-glare display, as long as you keep them out of direct sunlight or really bright halogen lights, they actually don't look that bad. But as soon as you go out in the daylight, oh, forget it. It's like no matter what you've done to that thing, forget it. And this is one of the reasons.
It's the truth for me. I hate reading even on my monitors as a computer, but the Kindle is easy. It's a joy it's like the only electronic device that I'm like, I like to read it, because I'm still a paper guy. If I get a headache after a while of just reading too much stuff on it.
Well, no, and honestly, I think that's one of the things the Kindle has solved. It's brought the feel of a physical book while having the interactivity and interlinking you get with computer type interface. And
Right.
that's its real gem. This is one of the reasons I don't think anytime in the next 2 years we're going to see this mythological Android Kindle,
I
because
disagree.
you think they're going to make an Android Kindle using that gray screen, or you think they're going to fuck up the best thing about the Kindle, that gray ball-bearing screen?
Oh, that would be cool.
They're
Android with
probably
the
going
Kindle
to
screen.
try and copy Barnes and Noble and build a cheap tablet just to get a slice of a new market. I don't think that they're going to get rid of the old Kindle.
See, and I think that'd be a mistake, because
Yeah, how much of this can you ride to the wave? Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a wave, but how much of it can be ridden is like at this point.
and at the end of the day, I think it hurt the real selling point of the Kindle, which is like what you and I are talking about, because people would go buy that one, the one Leo's talking about, instead of the other one, and they'd never experience that. Wow, because if you ever hold a Kindle, Kindle, one of these gray screen, and you start reading this, it's one of those, I get it. There's just this I get it factor
definitely.
to it.
Well, let me ask a question to everybody here in the room. If you were to have a tablet, what would its purpose be for you? What would you use it for?
Primarily, for me to have a tablet, I would use it as a laptop replacement, which means I would need my tablet to run all the SEO software I do, where I could basically just pull the tablet out and push some buttons on it, set up things, and just hand it over to the client I'm negotiating a contract with, and go, well, it would work kind of like that.
And you would forgo a hard keyboard for the virtual in doing that, because you use it. You set the brakes to your laptop.
No. But see, for that type of work, with the proper software, I could do without a keyboard. I'm still going to come back to my desktop to do any actual work. But this would be for demos of preloaded stuff and sort of stuff. And for that stuff, I can do without a physical keyboard.
Okay.
Because
What about you, Dr. Leo? What do you use a tablet?
Primarily, unfortunately, I hate to say it, I'd probably do like parallel and mostly media consumption at that point, but I can do media consumption from a laptop, so why the hell would I need a tablet?
Yeah.
So to me, something like the Kindle makes more sense. Hey, look, I have a crap ton of books and I don't have to worry about shelf space.
Okay.
That's my biggest thing.
Cool.
Leo?
For me, I would just use it mostly as a place for information storage and access. Like, what comes to mind immediately is like schools, how you can carry all of your textbooks in that form factor while at the same time having something that you can take notes on easily enough.
Well, and one of the things I think all these tablets need, which Android kind of has built into it, but it's still not quite to the par I'd like it to be, and it's like Bit was saying, when you lose the physical keyboard, you need to be doing other things. I think the voice control needs to get better.
Android does have cool.
I would say 8 out of 10 things you want to do on an Android device, you can do with the voice control. You push a button and you just talk to it. And assuming you don't have 8 billion people talking in the room with you, it's pretty good about figuring out what you say. When that gets to the point that you can do 10 out of the 10 things, and it integrates well with all the apps and everything else, then it's to the point that I think it's ready. It's not there yet, but it shows signs of moving there.
On that point, you know what I find funny just about the voice controls? There's a certain company that's been trying to work on this since Microsoft Ball. And guess what? They still can't get voice controls right.
I'm sorry. At the end of the day, if you want voice controls to work, the best way to do it is to calibrate them, which means you bring up that little, "Hi, Sally, the ball bounced down the phone in the 2001 space." You read that calibration paragraph, and then it knows your inflections, your voice, your things. And the storage capacity of these things have gotten big enough that it's pretty good at figuring it without any calibration. So if I did calibration, it would work all the time for me, its owner, and it'd work like 80-90% of the time for just random person I give it to. And if they can't do it, I'll give it here. I'll go, "What did you want? Blah, 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 blah." Okay. It's like,
Well, no, that's what I mean. It takes a company's mobile phone operating operating system to do what a full desktop replacement desktop can.
Well, and honestly, because of the way Android is sharing all those voice searches with the Google Archive, I think in the fullness of time that will get good enough, because I mean it's sampling everybody's voices. So,
yeah, it will get better. Yeah, I mean, because a lot of things that are behind that voice sampling is an AI to try to construct sentences and actually build its own intelligence for voice recognition. I've seen some of it in operation of trying to understand the Chinese language. I think Microsoft had a lot to do with this experimental software. It was very interesting. We're definitely going to get there.
Well, no, and honestly, I'm very impressed with the Android voice recognition, because one of the tests I threw at it, and to my surprise, as long as I put just a little extra inflection on my voice, I could say Linux, and Linux to it, and it could actually tell which of those I was searching for.
Cool.
And I'm like, that surprised the hell out of me. I had to put the inflection on it like I just said it there, but the fact that was all I had to do for it to be able to tell the difference between those so frickin' close words and get it right like 80% plus of the time, I was impressed. Because that's an order of magnitude better than uncalibrated voice recognition has been.
Well, let me say about the potential of an Amazon tablet, because now I hate to use the word tablet because none of these things are tablet. I come from the old school of actually programming for XP's tablet edition. I've had a lot of history work articles. I've had a lot of history working with hospitals that actually were the niche market for those tablets and getting signatures and things like that. The whole purpose of was to take the human hand and actually use the human hand as a cursor on these tablets. So, call them pads or whatever. To me, the device is an extension of my phone, because I believe we're doing too much on our phones with such little screen real estate. I think that we've pushed it to the very limit, and quite frankly, maybe not everybody agrees with me, I find it very annoying to work on my phone. It's too small a real estate to do what I want to do, so I look at these pads or tablets, what do you want to call them, as an extension of my phone. That's why two parties are very interesting to me, RIM and WebOS. WebOS brings a lot of the phone functionality to the pad, and RIM does the same thing via a bridge. That's exactly what I see the problem. It's not a gaming device. It's not like this a book reader or whatever. It is an extension of my phone. And if I wanted to read books, electronic books, I'm buying a Kindle. And I think that's probably why the Kindle bookstore is going to beat out the iBook store, where Apple's trying to make the iBooks. I think it's going to be a total disaster for Apple.
Well, Apple can sue Amazon for using the word AppStore all they want, and and Verizon can play all these. If you didn't buy an iPhone, then you don't have iBooks, and you didn't buy an iPhone, it's not. But at the end of the day, I see Amazon winning for two reasons. Reason one, like what you're saying, but reason two, they have all the publishers on their side.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if there are very few books aside from independents. And Amazon's actually fixing that. They're encouraging people to just come to them and distribute their books through Amazon. And it's one of those things. Amazon cornered this market before anybody realized it was a market that was of any value. Because ebooks had been tried so many times and failed. I honestly think everybody thought Amazon was smoking something when they went and did this whole Kindle thing. But they have proven it wasn't the idea; it was the user experience.
Yeah.
And they nailed that.
Well, let me give you my guess of what Amazon will do. I think Amazon will have some sort of device, but you know why they want to enter that market? Amazon has EC2, S3, and all of the CDN type infrastructure already in place to do something that a lot of its competition doesn't have. And that's to bring a tremendous amount of information to the cloud, centralize it, and bring those services to all of their devices. And it's very powerful to have that type of CDN network. I mean, personally, I've used S3, and I know a lot of people use EC2. I don't know. Does everybody know what I'm talking about?
No.
The personal clouds.
Well, yeah, I mean.
The enterprise cloud solutions. Yes.
Server. basically you can get this. It's like a rack space competition. On if you know what rack space is.
Yeah.
It's a company with.
I know what page you're on now.
It's like content. It's content delivery system and networks. It's what Apple's doing with their North Carolina data facility. In that, like a lot of websites do parallel downloads to you. Let's say you're after videos and things like that. Well, instead of putting it all in one server, you can add another thread to your browser and say it's going to come from a CDN, which is housing your video or download documents or images, and then it can come in much faster, evening out the load on your server. And that's part of like this S3 storage that Amazon has got. They've got these data centers everywhere that a lot of enterprises are already using to disperse data and ease the loads off of our web services to distribute content. So like, let's say you're in Japan or something like that. You don't want to have so many hops coming from United States content over to Japan. The CDN network is all over the world. So Amazon's already got this infrastructure. EC2 is basically if you want to do, you have clients and you need a server, you don't want to buy the hardware and all this other stuff, you only need it for maybe a month. You go to EC2 with Amazon, you rent out a server, certain amount of memory, CPU power, set it up for Linux, Windows, I always think you can't, but let's say Linux and Windows, you'd be able to provide that as a server, and the service, and then it could be a web server, a testing server, whatever you want to do. It could push content, and all that. It's very popular.
Isn't Amazon leasing that service out to people who to use as a file host for like
Dropbox? A lot of like Dropbox is an application. They use all these services that Amazon has. A lot of people don't even associate Amazon to being that's what we call a CDN.
Yeah.
And so Amazon has got this enormous infrastructure behind them that Apple's now trying to catch up with having their North Carolina data center, which I think is behind maybe hopefully, the upcoming Mobile Me cloud stuff. But Amazon's way ahead of the game on that stuff.
Oh, no, I know what you're talking about. Because I'm not doing that type of distribution now, but people who are in those types of distribution, large files and stuff, I know what you're talking
No, but let's say you're not doing large things. They can use their own backbone services for providing cloud services across their devices. So they make a tablet. Who's to say they can't start making Kindles that start using content sharing upon their cloud, and we start having our Amazon accounts become a lot more than just buying at their store. It's using their devices, getting my books, getting my music, now syncing calendars and all kinds of things like that. It can exponentially grow from there because they have the infrastructure to support something like that.
And on that note, Amazon becoming the new Apple, or Google
who used to say they wouldn't keep the option open and say, okay, we'll work with Google, you can sync this and that. I'm just saying there's an enormous potential with Amazon that a lot of people don't even know about that exists.
And honestly, what I think they'll do with that, I think they'll, like you're saying, use it for themselves, but I don't think they're going to stop like letting other people use it. I think, like you say, they've positioned themselves to basically be a corner hub of, as this cloud transition takes, people will just be, all of these services will be dependent in part on Amazon space.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because they've already built the infrastructure out.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody is watching this video, anybody still watching this video, and everybody here, you can get an S3 account and do a free backup for a year, and I think the upload downloads cost you pennies a month. From my own use, it's extremely cheap to use S3. It's Carbonite backup uses S3, Dropbox uses S3. I mean, you can make your own account, and you can run like Ruby scripts and stuff like that to do your own, like zip up your own backup, and there's no limitation how much you can back up. So it's very useful service, and a lot of people are beginning to use these CDNs, especially mobile, because mobile doesn't want to store on your phone, and that's how the CDNs became popular. Is that if I'm not going to store my stuff on somebody's phone, what am I going to store it? I got to store all kinds of information for them and provide my communication service. How do I do that? And that's how a lot of this has come to fruition. And you got much power behind Amazon. They can choose whatever the hell they want to with a pad or the Kindle to the pad.
No, and that would be interesting. There are a couple other things we could go into, but we are at 2 hours, 20 minutes, so we probably should lane up.
This is the 200 show, so you should make it special.
We could go on for 3 hours if y'all want, but I'm not so sure. You know what?
If I bore people with stuff, just tell me to shut up, you know?
No. I honestly, I think the people who are watching that would find that interesting. It's like, because I'd actually completely forgotten that, like you're saying, most of these services are actually largely just reselling Amazon's system, and I'd actually forgotten about that, but you're right, they are. It's like, it's one of those, and the thing is, does Amazon want to become the front runner? In the IT industry, there's this whole score of companies you've never heard of that what they do is write the things for everybody else who then resells them. Or create the back ends for infrastructures, like which is what Amazon's doing here, that then everybody else just uses and resells. It's like, and they get their cut of everybody's thing, and that's like, and these companies are more than happy to do that. They're like, let them do all the work for us, and then we'll just take the profit. It's like, it's a good business model right there. But the downside, like you're saying, is that nobody realizes they are responsible for that, and ultimately that can wind up biting a company in the ass. You know, a good example of that would actually be EDS. I don't know if you ever heard of EDS. I mean, HP bought them. They're not what they were, but for years, you know,
I worked with EDS when they did the transfer for Continental Airlines.
Yeah, it's like EDS was one of those companies. Almost nobody outside of the computer industry had ever heard of them, but they were just integral in so many things.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I don't think it has any negative connotation for Amazon that nobody knows about these cloud services that Amazon provides. I mean, it's all the better that Amazon makes it magical, like the Apple way of saying, hey, we're providing all these services for you. Nobody knows how it happens. You know, but if somebody did some research, well, gee, they've had these cloud services for quite a while, and that's what they're using. You know, and that's what they're using. So.
Yeah. Okay.
What's this NFC stuff with Google?
Yeah, you know what?
We're hedging Android bet with this.
Yeah, we've gone. Let's go over it. Basically, what it is one of the things that's likely going to be added to Android, and it's likely going to get integrated into your Google Payments account. Is, you know, basically our phones are becoming our wallets. It's the services like where you use your cell phone to make a payment at the soda machine and so on and so forth. They've changed the regulation in payment processing, and that's what this is all about, which basically states that is now allowed to be handled like credit card transactions pretty much universally internationally. So you're literally, you can leave home without your wallet or your ID, but not your phone, and just Google and PayPal and things like that will become your bank, which is what they want anyways.
I guess I'm going with a BlackBerry then.
Well, no.
Security that's a very.
Not wanting the Android-based app then.
Security becomes a huge question with this kind of thing.
Yeah, I know, and it's like, and the big holdup on this was because of the security concern. The regulators were not wanting to approve it, but they've shown that the same way with like a merchant, with an e-commerce merchant card and other things, if you take care of the chain of custody of the packets properly, you can maintain encryption. As a matter of fact, you can actually get rid of a loophole in encryption, which a lot of people don't realize. When you go to the grocery store and you swipe your card, there's like there's a few nanoseconds before it actually gets encrypted. There's like this brief window of opportunity to steal the information.
Yeah, ask the retailer I work for about that. They know perfectly well about that one.
Yeah, it's if you start moving this over to this and the chain of custody of the packets is handled properly, the transaction actually gets encrypted on the device before it ever leaves it. which means sort of a backdoor in the mobile device, which isn't beyond the realm of possibility, the window of opportunity is now removed from a device that you have no control over to one you do have control over. But that's the theory. In practice, we'll see how this really comes out. That's, given the things, we have some of these hacker competitions where people are like, I can Bluetooth hack your device from 1.4 miles away with my Bluetooth sniper rifle. And now I can enter your bank account too. It's like
No, but Bit brings up a good point. Security like that is a very big problem. The retailer I work for, friggin', a couple of years ago, we had something like 2 million credit card and debit card numbers bicked out of our system because of that particular decryption.
Yeah.
And, I should say the lack of security around that encryption and decryption process.
No, and honestly, I find it criminal, some of the holes in security merchants set up on a daily basis. It really is criminal negligence at best. Because this is other people's information you're handling. I don't care what the frickin' regulations say. You need to be handling this stuff like what it is. And they're like,
Well, here, I'll give you the exactly what our CTO said about it. We run Linux everywhere. It's Windows' fault. Quote.
Interesting theory.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. To me, the only person or the only company that I really trust with security, that I've seen proven is RIM.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Well, and it's what's really scary about that is a large part of that is actually isn't a large chunk of that Microsoft technology?
I don't know for sure. You might be right. I'm not sure.
Split will probably know more about that, as he has a head honcho that the only reason they have a Microsoft server is because he wants his BlackBerry.
Yeah, I'm going to say something to do with the servers that run that. They have to do with.
I think it's the Exchange integration or something.
Yeah.
They do it some weird way.
Yeah.
Well, BlackBerry has an encryption that they have their own server networks, which. Remember, they were arguing with a lot of the Middle Eastern countries and saying, we're not going to let you eavesdrop on our encryption, and they wanted to be able to intervene in a lot of the BlackBerry encryption.
And that has
from operating within their countries because the government couldn't have access.
Well, no, and that has to do with the chain of custody thing, because one of the reasons we get so many hacks out of China is because whenever something goes through either direction through that great firewall, it's decrypted, given to the middleman, which is the Chinese government, who then re-encrypts it. And whenever you have something like that going on in the chain of custody, you have the ability for an illicit person to be doing things they shouldn't. If that exists at any point in the chain of custody, regardless of who's doing it and what it's for, you have a neon blazing, neon sign security hole. And it's like you're saying. It's like there's big corporations who want to do that and make sure their workers aren't doing things. But if at any point you're taking encrypted data, unencrypting it, then you're creating the opportunity for a man-in-the-middle attack. You've completely broken the security system.
Yep.
Have we made anybody paranoid yet? Anybody afraid to use their credit cards now? I can make you more scared. I know several businesses that on a daily basis email your credit card numbers between their individual employees. Unencrypted.
That's intelligent.
Well, they don't see the harm in it. It came to them secure, so it's safe.
Yeah.
Well, there's just as many people who email their credit cards or bank statement. My favorite thing is when somebody's trying to straighten out an order and they send you the full credit card number or routing and account number of their checking account. Just entirely over the email. And I'm like, please cancel your account now. I don't want the liability.
Yeah, those customers are great.
Yeah.
Those are the people that you unplug them from the wall jack and pull the battery.
It's like, Leo, before you go play more in your backyard or jump off a bridge, do you have anything to add on that?
No, not really.
Okay. Anything else we want to go into, or do we want to stop at 2.5 hours?
We're good.
Okay.
It was light outside when we were recording this.
I know. It's like, how did it get dark? It's so dark now, man. Dang. It's like, all right. Peace out, everyone.